Welcome to Let's Learn 2024 D&D, where I go over a different rule of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition in 2024. This is for people looking for a quick rule refresher or looking to get into the game. Today, we're talking about damage types, critical hits, resistances, immunities, and vulnerabilities. Let's learn. Alright, we have a lot to cover for one video, so we will be efficient seeing as these concepts are already pretty straightforward. Let's start with damage types. We briefly went over those not too long ago. In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition 2024, we have 14 damage types. All of these are related to the manner of the attack made. These are acid, bludgeoning, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, piercing, poison, psychic, radiant, slashing, and thunder. All weapons you get in the game specify the damage type they do. Other features you might gain that give you bonus damage will also specify the damage type the feature will do. The important thing to understand about damage types is why they matter. And that is for our next topic, resistances, immunity, and vulnerability. A resistance means a creature is particularly good at defending against the damage type. A good thought process is a creature that lives in lava might not be the best target to hit with a fire attack. When a creature is resistant to an attack, you take the damage you would do and divide the number in half. So if you hit the creature for 20 fire damage, they would only take 10 fire damage. To build on this idea, some spells like a fireball allow creatures to make a dexterity saving throw to take half damage if they succeed of the effect. So if they pass the dexterity saving throw and are resistant to the effect, they would take an additional half damage. So a fireball against a creature that dodges it with resistance to fire could go from 20 damage to 5 damage. So it's important to be observant of the type of creature you are fighting. The Dungeon Master doesn't explicitly tell your characters if creatures are resistant to damage. It's up for your characters to discern this using their abilities and visual senses after attacks are made. Now, immunity is when a creature is completely resistant to a damage type or effect. So if a creature is immune to fire damage, regardless, if they pass or fail a saving throw, they take 0 fire damage. I think a fun nod for people trying to really look into the mechanics to it, if some things have additional effects, like they're knocked prone or something, a creature that fails a saving throw taking that fire damage, even if they're immune to it, if they failed the saving throw, they would still be knocked prone if that ability said they would not be knocked prone if they failed. Lastly is vulnerability, which is when a creature is rather susceptible to a particular type of damage. Generally, you don't know this information without research or abilities, but is particularly a strong effect. A creature vulnerable to a damage type takes double the damage they normally would when subject to the damage type. Only the damage type is doubled though. So if a character does 10 slashing damage and 5 fire damage, and the creature is vulnerable to fire damage, they would still take just 10 slashing damage and then 10 fire damage. Our last topic today is critical hits and misses. A critical hit is when you make an attack roll and roll a 20 on the attack roll d20 test. The result is considered a hit regardless. This result should always be celebrated amongst players. However, if your Dungeon Master rolls a critical hit with the monster's attack, if you're my player, you must boo me and tell me I'm cringe. At least that's what they do for me. A critical hit with an attack roll means you take all the damage dice you were going to roll and double them. So if you hit with a longsword, you normally would roll 1d8 and add your strength modifier. But if you roll critical hit, you roll 2d8 and add your strength modifier. While you double the dice you roll, you don't double the modifiers added to the damage. If you have an additional effect that adds damage dice to your damage rolls, like a rogue sneak attack feature, you double those dice as well. As a small note, I have used before in my homebrew rules, to make these hits more exciting, you can let the players take the maximum result of their normal roll and then add 1 dice, so their critical hit is always pretty big. But that is a homebrew rule exclusively. Don't take that as written law. So now that you have critical hits out of the way, our last topic is critical misses. This is when you make an attack roll and roll a 1 on the dice. You simply miss the target if you would normally hit. Not every swing is in your favor, just like some are more in your favor with a critical hit. For comedic effect, you can let your players, if you're a dungeon master, include comical ways in how they flop the attack. This can keep the mood lighthearted in some situations. Encourage players when they make a critical hit to describe how powerful the attack was, but also, it could be a sense of humbleness to know that humanoid creatures are humanoids and they're going to make mistakes. So before I call it a wrap, I want to mention critical successes and misses on other D20 tests. So historically, people view these as automatic successes and failures. And depending on your game, you may or may not want to do that. But the general rules don't outline that. I would say personally that allowing this to apply to saving throws wouldn't be a big deal. characters may not have the stats to succeed on every saving throw. So sometimes it's important to reward a critical success. And ultimately for skill checks, it's a little different. If a character wanted to do a skill test and they couldn't achieve the result with a natural 20, you might not even say they should make the check. An example would be a player character stating they want to simply jump to the moon. Even if they roll a natural 20, they likely wouldn't make it to the moon. Would they get higher than a normal person? Likely, but not a jump to the moon. And of course, this depends on the game you're playing, so keep that in mind as well. And also, even if you want to let them succeed and jump to the moon, they can't breathe up there, so that might be a problem too. With that, thank you all for listening to the Let's Learn. Go ahead and leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. If there's another topic you want to cover for the 2024 rules of Dungeons & Dragons, or have a question about the topic just covered, leave a comment. The point of these are to be educational and informative to help introduce the game to people who may not have played before or want to get back into it. Thank you guys.